It's always a little tricky to paint water and reflections, but it's really rewarding to do this with watercolor because it's kind of what it does best. So this is a very sped up version of a tutorial that I sent out to my subscribers. These go out once a week, you get them in your inbox, and we do this in real time with a lot more explanation and a lot more detail. But this will just give you a general idea. You know, the idea behind these techniques is that it's something that you can do in your sketchbook when you're on site. So this is really about, you know, plein air watercolor painting or urban sketching or travel sketching, you know, anything where you're on location. And I'm using a wet into wet technique to start with because that's where watercolor really manages to look like water. But then I also come in and do what I would call, you know, wet over dry, where I'm adding some strokes once the paper is dry. That's why I keep reaching out to touch it to make absolutely sure it's dry, because that's where I get the really crisp edges that I'm going to want for some parts of the painting. So one thing I do is to make sure to keep the whole painting on the go at once. So I don't want to get overly focused on just one part of it and ignore everything else. So I work a little on the sky and a little on the water, and then I go back to the land and try to keep all of those elements sort of coming together at the same time. And one of the reasons that's important in a scene like this is you want to get the reflections in. So that means you have to know what it's reflecting. So this is something that I'm always thinking about, is like, I need the land to kind of be right so I know where the reflections go. But some of the other issues when you're painting water is that the waves are obviously bigger in the foreground, which usually means towards the bottom of the picture. And also water is a little bit greener as it gets closer to you and a little bit bluer as it goes further away. That's just a generalization, but you know, it's a good rule of thumb. So as I'm working on one part, I'm letting another part dry. And so eventually I get to where I can drop in some color for the trees. And at the same time as I'm doing those trees, I'm dropping in the reflection because they're very, very similar. They're not identical, but they're very similar. And so especially when you're traveling, you might have a really small travel palette and you can't mix up too many colors on a tiny palette at once. So it's a good idea to kind of always keep those reflections in play. So as the painting dries, I start adding the darker details. And of course, that's what we need to do with watercolor, right? We start with the lightest, we work towards the darkest, and a lot of the darker colors in the water are also in the foreground, and they get lighter as you go back. Now, I also like mixed media, so I'm going to add in colored pencil, I'm going to add in marker, and this is definitely the kind of stuff that I do when I'm out and about and not at home in front of my studio. Anyway, if you're interested in this kind of thing, feel free to take a look at the link that I'm going to put below here. You can subscribe and get these sent to your inbox every week, and we cover everything that can possibly be done in a sketchbook. But also, if you enjoy these videos, you know, give this one a like or subscribe to the channel, and you'll see a lot more of them pop up. I hope it helps you with your sketchbook practice, and I hope you get a chance to get outside and do some drawing. Thanks so much for watching.